and welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm back out and about working, doing normal bits and bobs after having had a fantastic weekend and then a week away in North Wales. And we're going to split up this trip into two. Firstly, this week with a breakdown of what we got up to with the Women Drivers Social Club for Weekender West. So last year with the Women Drivers Social Club, we did two weekend events over the summer. They were based in the south and in the north. The idea being that we're hoping to get kind of vaguely close to as many people as possible, hopefully draw in some new people to come along to events when it's close to them hopefully really enjoy themselves and then want to keep coming to more events after that. So we did north and south last year, and then to complete the compass points we are doing east and west this year, but we started with west over in North Wales, and then we have got east happening in Norfolk later this year. And so had lots of exciting things planned, and it was going to be a really nice long weekend over in North Wales, and the weather decided to agree with us too, because we had some absolutely scorching weather booked in, definitely planned for the week. So for me, it started at about 9-8. Well, technically it started the day before when I ended up loading Peggy up with everything that she'd needed, and also doing quite complex 4D chess style packing in terms of what needed to come in Peggy and what needed to come in Jaffa the following day for the rest of our trip. So myself, Peggy, and then my sister in Rosie, and also Sarah in her Toyota Sarah were kind of setting off on the Friday, but Jamie was coming along on the Saturday, save a day of annual leave kind of thing, and meant that he didn't have to camp an extra night, saved him that as well, which was probably beneficial, because whilst the weather in the day was gorgeous, the weather in the evenings and in the night was pretty damn cold. So we set off on the Friday. I set off for mine, came down to my parents' house to meet my sister, and then went across on the A14 to Thrapston Services, where we met up with Toyota Sarah, and then from there we convoyed, and we went kind of along the A14 a little bit, then up the M1, and then across the A50 was the route, and altogether not too much of a problem. We'd planned out some intended stops, but that ended up kind of not being exactly what happened. We obviously stopped at Thrapston and met each other, and then from there we'd planned to kind of trek through to a place called Snugberries, which is a really fantastic little ice cream bar place, and then on to Chester Costco to fill up with fuel before we went into Wales. But we got kind of somewhere along the A50, and basically whenever my sister had slowed down, kind of come to a stop at a roundabout or whatever, she seemed to have great problems with there being power when she tried to kind of move off, and also would kind of intermittently lose a little bit of power in her little imp. So we ended up pulling into this little village. We'd seen a sign that said kind of Sudbury Village and shop courtyard and stuff, and we thought, well, that sounds all right to kind of pull into. We'll park up there, have a little tinker, see if we can work out what's going on, and then have ourselves a little break as well. We got there, I think, maybe about 2 o'clock-ish. And just before we pulled in, when my sister kind of pulled over and said, this is really weird, I did a very quick drive of her car to see kind of what it was, and it felt like it was kind of flat spotting, so I thought maybe the distributor. So we pulled into this place, and it turned out it was Sudbury House, which is a National Trust property, but it also had like a lovely little courtyard of shops, some quite scenic car parking, a lovely ice cream place, and yeah, so really a jackpot in terms of scenic little stops on a long route. And it's definitely something that if I'm doing a whole day drive over to North Wales and taking my time again, it's definitely somewhere that I will bear in mind for popping to in future. And I would actually like to be able to go around the property, because it's actually the Children's National Trust property, so it's all intended to be kind of interesting and filled with toys and stuff. So we really cool place to have stopped, and we pulled in, got my toolkit out, and I have to say, whilst it seems a faff in other ways, having done some work with my dad on his imps now, the engine seems a faff in some ways, but I have to give it to them. Adjusting the distributor is incredibly easy. It's right there, right in front of you. You've got none of the difficulty getting to the nut like you do with a Morris Minor, where you have to kind of like feel in the dark and have no idea if you're getting there, kind of thing. Very, very easy. Undid it a bit, twisted it a bit whilst running, twisted it a bit the other way, kind of thing, until it sounded a little happier. And then she went off and did a bit of a test drive, said it wasn't doing it anymore. So we were like, great, we'll go have ourselves an ice cream, a little wander around. It was a very cute second-hand bookshop, and they also had little sew-on patches. And I thought, well, if my sister was going to need some mechanical help anywhere, it was very kind of her to pick a place where I could get a sew-on patch for Peggy's blanket. So I managed to get 2 little sew-on patches, which is really cool, and has added to Peggy's blanket for the week, and got some stuff from the little shop, and then from there headed on to Chester Costco. There was a kind of a little bit of building of traffic, but we didn't have too much of an issue at that point. But then get to Chester Costco, fill ourselves up, meet up with Robin and Ab, who are Steph's friends who are coming along, and then from there start the convoy into North Wales. And that is where we hit the traffic. If you've ever tried to get into Wales at the start of a bank holiday, or out of Wales at the end of a bank holiday, you will know that the A55 is probably just not fun, and we even had problems getting onto the A55 from where we were coming from, and we ended up in this kind of standstill bit of traffic with engines off. Luckily it was downhill, and we just handbraked off, rolled down the hill to the next bit of shade, and then handbrakes on, sat there for ages, waited, let the gap kind of build up, and then all moved down to kind of the next bit of shade. It does make me laugh when you end up in that sort of situation and you start leaving a little bit of a gap for you to gradually move into, and somebody beeps their horn, as if you rolling forward another 4 meters is going to make the world of difference to how quickly they get to their destination. It's really not, and it just makes you think, well, what's the point? So it took us 2 hours to get from Chester to Abergele, which is where our fantastic campsite was. We were greeted by the lovely on-site wardens, who were fantastic over the weekend, really enthusiastic about us being there. I'm going to absolutely butcher the name of it. Bryn van Gol Ganau. It's called BFG Camping if you're looking for somewhere in the area to camp. Really good, really friendly. Toilets were great, very warm. which in the nights was very welcome. And yeah, just a really nice little spot to stop off in and make our base. And they had a large majority of us kind of camped along the back, and then a few others who had asked for electric camped in a few other places too. But it was very welcome to have finally made it there after spending kind of 2 hours trying to get from Chester. And I think it made my day, because I'd set off from my home at like 9 a.m. and we got to Chester, to the campsite for kind of about 7:30, so it had been a blooming long day. And then I had to put a tent up by myself, which I've not had to do in a very long time, and I don't think I've ever done it with our tent, but just about kind of managed. It's a lot of kind of going in the tent, out of the tent, but they are very simple, our bell tents, so that worked in my favour. It's just heavy. And I was camping next to Katie from Wrenching Wench, and Sylvester had made it, having had some last minute issues with a seal on his gearbox. She'd managed to kind of truck through and get all of that done, which is obviously fantastic. And it was great to see Sylvester again, because she hadn't had that out since I think Festival of last year. Next to her was Isabel and Charlotte, who had come in their Morris Minor. Then it was Claire Atkinson, who had come in her tent box on top of her van. Amanda, who had come in her Z3. Robin and Ab, who had come in their Vauxhall. My sister in her Hillman Californian, and then Tash in her Beetle. And then I think that was it for everyone that was up there. Elsewhere on the campsite, we had Alex and Amy in their MGF 1950s. I'm not 100% sure on those ones. Then we had Sophie and Hannah, who were in their Polestar. We had Claire and Mush in Mavis. We had Toyota Sarah in her Toyota Sarah, and we had Isabel, Sarah and Lila, who were in their very early of that version Range Rover. I think it was like one of 25, which will come in relevant later on in these stories. So we had a really chill night on the campsite. Again, a few other people were delayed by the awful traffic getting in, so some people unfortunately did end up having to put their tents up in the dark, but we did all get settled and sorted eventually. Saturday morning, we all kind of got lined up, headed out on the A55 further into Wales to Anglesey to go to Taclatide, which is the Anglesey Motor Museum, and had a really good run over there, and a nice simple drive to get there. Everyone managed to kind of keep up and keep together, and then we got to go around that fantastic museum. It's a great little collection of stuff. Well, not really little, it's actually quite crammed in there, and they have some quite brilliant use of mannequins that had us all giggling throughout the museum. I'm not sure if that was the intention when they put the mannequins in, but they did make us laugh. A great collection of tractors, of like steam vehicles, of big military vehicles, buses, loads of cool stuff, and there was guys that were working on some of their projects and things in there as well, so lots of people that you could interact with and talk. And their cafe is incredible, great stuff, great cooked food, brilliant cakes, and yeah, just a really nice stop. And so we were there until kind of about 3 o'clock, during which Jamie arrived. Jamie got some food before we then headed out on a bit of a scenic route. So we went via kind of longest place name, which I'm not even going to attempt to butcher. We went via the Menai Bridge, and a viewing spot for that, and then we went via kind of Snowdonia and past the kind of train up to Snowdon, and some really scenic routes. Unfortunately, not very far into the route, we were back on mainland rather than on Anglesey. The Range Rover started blowing out quite a lot of steam/smoke, and it turned out that a little coolant pipe that is a T-piece that is plastic had just entirely shattered and had just completely disintegrated. It's one of those things that when it was in the first 25 of its run, it hadn't kind of fully been tested, and it's a very weird little part to get hold of. So they ended up pulled over at a Texaco garage after kind of gradually getting themselves there by topping up the water. It wasn't that far, but it obviously took kind of piping off some bits and getting themselves pulled over. The rest of us carried on with their route because they were able to get some of the bits that they needed from there and from a handy little local farmer called Glyn. And then they messaged us when we got back to camp to see if there was anyone who had a few other bits. Also on this run, the MG got a flat, and so people had to all pull over whilst that was worked on. So not our most straightforward run with the Women Drivers Social Club, but all cars do make it to the end eventually, which is always a bonus. Sarah and Claire ended up going back out in the Toyota Sarah with a few bits and pieces to drop them off with those in the Range Rover to fix it and get it home. They bled it later that evening and the following morning and managed to get it home to Scotland following the weekend on the fix that they had put in, and then have since ordered parts. And obviously the spare tyre swap on the MG was not really a huge problem, but it was a really beautiful bit of driving, and some really gorgeous roads that we kind of went round, and to kind of drive through some beautiful passes, and all of the cars coped fine with all of that, so that was good. Got back to the campsite, and it's kind of become a little tradition that there's a big group meal, and Claire Atkinson has started taking it upon herself to do the big bulk cook for us all, which is incredibly kind of her. And so we were able to sit around and enjoy an absolutely gorgeous kind of pasta bolognese that she'd made, and have a chat whilst waiting for the others to be able to get back. And all in all, a very lovely first official day of the event, and we all had a pretty fantastic time, I think. The Anglesey Transport Museum is just brilliant, loads of cool stuff. We spent ages in there going around kind of spotting all of these unique little bits and bobs. They had some really cool little bits that were 3D printed as well in the gift shop, which were quite cool, like a little V8 fidget toy that they'd had made. And so yeah, a really great base for the day, and then to have a scenic drive out, really awesome. The following day, well, for the whole weekend actually, was Llandudno's Victorian Extravaganza and Transport Festival. So we got into as few cars as possible, went to Llandudno Junction train station, got on the train in because parking was going to be impossible, and then had a brilliant day in Llandudno. Some people went up the Orme on the tram and explored up there. Some people went round on the steam fair and stuff like that, and then there was the big transport festival that was happening, that had a brilliant selection of historic buses and military vehicles and commercial vehicles and classic cars, and then a bit of an auto jumble. It was very easy to spend a whole day there. You could probably easily spend 2 days if you wanted to properly see everything on both sides of it. And they've got vintage buses going between the kind of town centre where the Victorian extravaganza was on, and the fields where the transport festival was going on. And it was just, yeah, brilliant. We had an amazing day. We did a little bit of time in the town. I had a go at one of the fairground games and sort of won, but mostly just paid for a little octopus toy, and then had some fish and chips, then got on the vintage buses and went and joined the people that were over at the transport festival and got to explore some really fantastic vehicles there. They had a really lovely BBC bus there, well, truck unit thing that's for broadcasting, that was great to kind of get in and explore some absolutely beautiful buses, including a very tiny little dwarf bus, I think they called it, that only seated 14. It was just as high as all the other kind of coaches, but not half as long, and it was just absolutely adorable. So we had a lovely time walking around, going around the auto jumble, looking at all the bits and bobs. Jamie was able to get a little fuse holder for the scimitar, because the fuse holder on the fan at the front had broken, so he was able to get that fixed and updated. And then we all met up and then headed to the kind of bus stop to get on a bus to go on the parade. So they do a parade at the end of each day. One of them goes out to Conwy and one of them goes kind of round the Orme. We managed to all get on one of the non-stopper buses. So one of the buses stops halfway around the Orme and you stand there and watch kind of the parade go past, and then the non-stopper is kind of part of the parade and you stay on that for the whole duration. So we did that and had a really cool time, really loved it. The WDSC do love their vintage buses and bus trips like that, and going around the Orme was spectacular, and looking out of the rear window, because we were all at the back of the bus, at all of the vehicles going by was just brilliant, and to see them kind of coming around the corners and things was amazing. A really cool thing to have been part of. And then it dropped us off kind of at one end of the town opposite to where we'd been picked up from, and we were able to watch the rest of the parade come past us, which was really cool. We had a fantastic time kind of cheering for the cars when they were beeping their horns. There was a lovely little bubble car that had bubbles coming out of the back of it, which was a real laugh, and we absolutely loved. 3 little bubble machines all set up on the back of it to blow bubbles as it went round on the parade. Absolutely brilliant. We love it when cars don't take themselves too seriously and have a lot of fun with what they've got, and it was brilliant. And loads of other fantastic things taking part as well. Tractors, the works, anything that was on the field was able to go and do the drive round, which was great to see. We got ourselves some food and then headed back to the train station to get on the trains to then head back to camp. Sat round again at camp having a chat and a drink and catch up on kind of things that people had seen that others might not have caught up on, and yeah, just had a really lovely time. Then it was off to bed before the final day, and unfortunately it was not only get the tents down but also an early start, because it was out of North Wales. Kind of quite smart, because if we'd stayed till the end of the day we'd have been caught in a lot of the traffic that was leaving North Wales at the end of the bank holiday, especially with the extravaganza and stuff going on. But we were leaving in the morning to go to Chester Zoo. Bit of an interesting choice, you might think, for a classic car club of any variety to go to. But I posed it as an option to people when I was saying that we were going to do it, and it was in demand. People were pretty keen to go, and who am I to say let's not? And obviously as a big group we got a nice discount on the tickets, and we were able to go around and see the animals together and just generally have fun. And I think that's the really nice thing about the WDSC, is that we've got to a point now where even if it's your first weekend, you're gonna have a nice time with the people no matter like what we're doing, and so it's all just kind of a lovely group of friends going round and having fun at whatever they were doing. And so we got to have great fun with the sloths, which Katie was really excited about seeing. I got to show people the giant otters, which is something I'm always really excited about seeing. I think they're fantastic. And also got to see the penguins, which are always my favourite at Chester Zoo. They've got such a great big enclosure, and you get to see them quite up close as they come past the windows and stuff. It's brilliant, and yeah, loads of really cool, and they've opened a new area as well, which wasn't there the last time I went to Chester Zoo. So there was loads to see and lots to explore. So we all had a pretty fun day. Filling up the queue into Chester Zoo with our cars. I think we must have looked quite an interesting bunch. Interestingly, they've got like a little map on the app that they've got, and in the car park image they've actually got a photo of a beetle in the car park, which was quite funny because probably for the first time in a long time there was a classic white vintage beetle exactly as the diagram shows in the car park, because Tash was there. There wasn't necessarily any Scirocco's and VWs, Scirocco's and Morris Minors and stuff like that though, which is pretty unusual, pretty typical, I guess. But yeah, nice to see nonetheless. And we stayed kind of right till the end. There was some people that had gone partway through the day. Okay, I need to head off. Got a bit of a trek home from here, and headed on their way. But we stayed pretty much till closing because we were only going back into North Wales for the rest of the weekend. So we were there sweeping the gift shop before heading out at kind of 5 o'clock. All in all, a fantastic weekend and such a great bunch of people. We've got a really good group of core people that come along, and then everyone, there's usually one or two more that come that it's their first one, and it's really great to kind of welcome them in, and often they then become part of that core group of regulars that like coming along, which is brilliant. It's so nice to see it kind of growing and expanding like that. And we've obviously got another one of these planned for Norfolk later in the year, which was intended to be close to Amanda, because she's obviously been the furthest travelled quite a few times on these weekends, but unfortunately Amanda is in the Netherlands on the weekend that it's booked for. We tried to wiggle it about, but it wasn't really going to work, and so unfortunately Amanda's there in spirit but not in person, but I'm sure there'll be lots to send through to her so that she doesn't feel too left out. But yeah, really lovely time, and another success for the WDSC, and lots to look forward to. Now we, at the end of this trip, we're not heading out of Wales, despite the fact that I'd made it really easy for everyone to get out of Wales at the end by doing the last stop at Chester Zoo. We ended up going back into Wales and seeing all of the extravaganza traffic on the other side basically parked on the A55 as we headed back in. And I'll tell you all about what we got up to in our week in North Wales with Peggy, Jaffa, a little bit of Vic, a little bit of Laura, Yean's, Morris Minor in next week's podcast. But I hope you've really enjoyed today, and thank you all very much for listening, and in the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.